We're back. Finally, we're back. The United Road has returned, and I thought we'd do it around 2 weeks before the season started because nobody cares about the Euros, do they? Nobody cares about England, and the Premier League is 2 weeks away. We have the Community Shield next Saturday. We have pre-season very much in full flow, and who better to have as my first guest back before the season starts as Stu Woolley. Stu, how are you doing, mate?
Well, mate, first of all, thanks for inviting me on, mate.
You've been always welcome to come on.
No, well, I really appreciate it. It's I've been watching, catching up with the podcast, and it's been going really, really well. So, congrats on that, mate. And I know your blog's gaining popularity as well, which is ideal.
I hope so.
But yeah, I'm good. Interestingly enough, and I know one of the topics you want to talk about towards the end is footwear and that. But since we've last been on the show together, I've been out of retirement for 12 months, and I'm back playing for the mighty Tipton Town Super Vets over 50s. And so been doing that. Been doing a lot on a lot of podcasts. I get asked quite a lot to do podcasts, which is quite nice. So great to be back, and great to catch up with you, old friend. It's been a while, mate. Been a long time.
I tell you what, there's actually a thing I want to discuss before we properly get into everything that we're going to talk about, and it's actually an apology, because I believe there was at one of our very, very first shows we did together, we spoke about Jadon Sancho, and I was a big advocate, and he kind of made me wish I was burying my head in the sand because I was a little bit wrong about him. And I think he could have been great for us, but unfortunately he didn't end up being. And I think so many things went wrong, both his fault, probably the club's fault. I would arguably say it was more him. But yeah, what do you make of that one, just quickly?
Do you know something? I'm quite disappointed that it has turned out that way. My lad loves him, thinks he's absolutely brilliant, and the Dortmund Jadon Sancho has never ever materialised. So I think the right move is for him to go to PSG if it's going to be PSG. I think if he looks back in his career, Cal, I think he'd be hugely disappointed with what he hasn't achieved at Manchester United and what he did achieve prior to coming to Manchester United. He should have been a shoo-in for the Euros, just gone. He should have been playing at a much, much higher standard. I think we paid him way too much money, to be brutally honest with you. He's one of those.
Probably another victim of the previous regime, really. And to be honest, he's obviously not covered himself in glory, has he? But I don't think anybody really has, or very, very little amount of people probably have over the last 10, 11 years. Bruno probably being one of them who could. Solskjaer, arguably. Rashford, arguably. Other than that, you can't really say too many have, though, could you? I imagine.
I remember that show you're talking about, though, because if you remember, I got absolutely vilified in the comments and got accused of knowing F all about football, certainly German football. And it's not a question of I'm right, wrong, blah, blah, blah. It's more of a disappointment that it's ended up this way, really. That's the big issue for me. So, look, I wish him luck, whatever we do. We've got to be making moves this week, haven't we? I know you want to talk about it, so I think it'd be massively interesting what happens this week. But I think, at the end of the day, he's only got himself to blame, pal.
Yeah, I think he does. I'd agree with that. Unfortunately, it's kind of the way United have been over the last 11 years. But I think sometimes you have to take a little bit of responsibility yourself, especially when there's been so many reports of attitude issues and late to train and things. But anyway, we're not here to speak about Sancho. And of course, I do hope he turns it around. Of course, I want him to. I always want players to prove us wrong at United. But what I really want to start with is over the past few days, the biggest news that's probably come out of Man United is the task force has actually reconvened and probably concluded the findings on Old Trafford. And having a little bit of a read here, Laurie Whitwell has obviously said Man United are aiming for 100,000 seat capacity at Old Trafford, with the initial conclusion that a new stadium is the best way to go. Task Force are looking at finance and the appearance of the ground on adjacent land, and Jim Ratcliffe and the rest of Ineos wants the full recommendation by the end of the year. And Henry Winter has also mentioned as well that Man United have to build a stadium for the future and not redevelop Old Trafford. Club has the room on the site to build a bold Trafford. I'm assuming pun. A modern home that is architecturally stunning and atmospherically intense, and a statement of a stadium. It'll take time. They'll probably have to move out for 2 to 3 years, and their money, albeit with any permissible grants. And north of $1.5 billion for the Wembley of the North. Fans apparently split 50-50 over new build redevelopment, and ambitious club has to think big and build big. And what an amazing opportunity for an iconic new stadium, an opportunity that has to be seized fully and be bold. Now, we'll go on to Henry Winter in a second, but what are your thoughts on this? I mean, I think it was probably one of the first shows, and I've spoken to pretty much every guest I've had on. What are your thoughts? Because I know you're a season ticket holder. I'm a regular match goer, grew up in the area, from the area. What are your thoughts as a season ticket holder and a long-time season ticket holder?
Do you know, I'm quite excited about the prospect, because I knew when people were talking about it 6 months ago, and I was on a show, I can't remember which channel I was on now, and I made a point that it would cost way too much to redevelop Old Trafford. I've listened to you on many occasions when you've come back from a game and you've been talking about various aspects of the ground falling apart, rusting, etc. And you even made reference yourself, it was never going to be a viable fiscal option, financial option to redevelop Old Trafford. You could paper the cracks with 400, 500, 600 million pounds, but if you are looking at a stadium of $1 billion to 1.5 billion, and why would you paper over the cracks of 600 million? It just doesn't make sense. Interestingly enough, the guys at Ineos, Sir Jim and his team, they've got the wherewithal to go out and raise the money and build this stadium, because you would use it as borrow capital, 100%. You wouldn't use your own money. When you look at what they can dip into with the Ineos kind of program, they'll have a separate development program for new builds, for whatever they're doing throughout their Ineos thing. So they'll be able to actually tap into that mastermind, tap into the right architects, tap into the right developers, tap into understanding how to acquire the land that they need and what then to do with Old Trafford. And although people are talking about 2 billion, to actually put a stadium that's going to be greater than what Tottenham managed to achieve for $1 billion. I mean, we all, you know as well as I do, Tottenham Stadium is, well, it's phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. If you've not been there, I implore people to go, because it's absolutely phenomenal. For us to be able to do that is going to be 1.5 to 2 billion. It's the right move. It will bring much needed revenue. It will absolutely zero out any PSR, if there is PSR moving forward, within that time scale. And it will enable us then to, look, Manchester United can attract the players. They can. Even when you look at where we are under, under the old regime, we can attract the players. But to move to a state-of-the-art Carrington, a state-of-the-art stadium, will be absolutely brilliant. And I would say, whether people have bought into what Ineos are doing or they haven't bought into what Ineos are doing, whether people understand and like the needs to modernise football, and you know, Cal, because I talk about it for years, I hate modernising football. I don't like the new modern football. I prefer the old honest football. We want to achieve everything on the pitch, and you've got to have an infrastructure and a stadium to be able to do it. So you're not going to be able to call it Old Trafford. We know that. You'll be able to.
I don't know. I think you could.
I think you probably keep parts of it, maybe, because what people are understandably upset about is the Munich tunnel. And I 100% agree. Like, I really do. You know, the Munich tunnel, certain areas of the ground which are synonymous with Manchester United and how it's been. So if you could somehow redevelop and entwine those into the stadium, then you could keep the name, perhaps.
Yeah, I know. I get it. I think there's obviously qualms and queries and concerns, I suppose, naturally. But just before we get into that, obviously, hello to everybody in the comments. There's a couple ones here, obviously, from Billy. I that new ground is needed. I know the history of Old Trafford will always be a pull for people to stay, but look at Spurs, Arsenal, even City. Just hope the season ticket doesn't go up by hundreds. I'm sure many would agree. Daryl, I always wanted to redevelop Old Trafford, but slowly come around to the idea of a new stadium. As long as it's got character and not a soulless generic modern stadium, I think most people would agree with that as well. Hi to Trevor as well. Hi to Julio. Just wanted to go back to a point there. I think you could definitely call it Old Trafford. I think if it's on the site where Old Trafford is, or very, very, very close to it, because obviously the land around Old Trafford, you know how big it is. I think they could probably still do it. I actually think what will end up happening is that they will end up doing similar to probably what they've done to the cricket ground down the road. I think they'll call it something like the Ineos Old Trafford or the Ineos whatever.
Yeah.
And if they want to do that and give us £5 billion and get around the rules like certain other clubs might have done, I'm sure there's an argument for it. But I'm not particularly against things like naming rights. To the likes of me, you, so many other fans who go regularly and who even go spontaneously and who have been a fan all their lives and all that sort of stuff for many, many years. It will always be Old Trafford, whether it's
of course it will.
the current state of its stadium or if it's in a new state of a stadium, which as long as it's on that site, it will always be Old Trafford. Probably similar to what a lot of Tottenham fans say with White Hart Lane. They probably still call it White Hart Lane. So I haven't got an issue with that. I think some people's issues, and I don't necessarily think they're issues, to be honest, I actually think they're more than fair. I think a lot of people have got such a connection to Old Trafford for so many reasons.
Yeah.
That I think they'd probably find it quite hard to move to a more modern stadium. And I do get it. And I think it's kind of at the epitome of the Glazer family's ownership of the club that we have let it get to a state where the best option is to move. And I think that's a really sad indictment on their ownership, that we are having to potentially move to a modern new stadium because the current state of the stadium is just beyond repair.
It is, and it's sad. Look, I walked through the doors of Old Trafford when I was 8, Molineux when I was 7, Old Trafford when I was 8. And I just remember the magic of it, as a small lad going in and just in awe of this really old stadium at the time. It was wooden and that type of thing. And then you see it develop under, Sir Alex Ferguson and David Gill. And, they had plans, didn't they, to fill in all the quadrants and then be able to build a further layer ahead of it, but then on top of it. But of course, there's always been an issue, hasn't there, with the railway line that goes, around the back. So, and when we know the cost of moving the railway line, it just isn't feasible.
Yeah, well, it's always been expensive and probably not going to have worked just because of where it is and stuff like that, isn't it? I think it's always been quite hard for the club and probably just not able to happen. But whether that's different now, I don't know.
No, I find I would imagine the engineering side of it would just be mightily impossible to do. So
yeah,
I do think there's enough ground in and around us. They've been buying up pieces of land, haven't they, from what I can gather? Anyway, so, and they could kind of trim down Old Trafford as it is and make it, I don't know, the women's stadium, and crikey, I always say female then. I'll get us cancelled here. Sorry, mate. The women's stadium in the, the under 21s and under 18s, and maybe they could do that. But, we have to have something. I was in Barcelona a couple of weeks ago and I went over to the new camp, and that's being redeveloped as we speak. And they've knocked it down to rebuild it. And that's costing them close on $2 billion. Real Madrid reskinned their stadium, didn't they? I mean, that cost them over $1 billion to do that. The new stadium, with the Snapdragon Stadium we played in the other night against Arsenal, absolute state of the art. And this is what people are wanting, because it won't just be Old Trafford. It won't just be the place that hosts Manchester United. It will be the place that regains England matches. When was the last time we had an England match at Old Trafford? When was the last time we had an FA Cup semi-final at Old Trafford? The Challenge Cup doesn't go there anymore. Nobody goes there anymore. There's no rock concerts, there's no boxing, there's no NFL, there's nothing. And this is what the idea of a stadium is. It's football first, ancillary second. We don't want Tyson Fury, whoever, pissing off to Saudi Arabia. We want them in the UK. More and more NFL teams want to play. So this is the issue again with sports ownership and the sports model. I mean, that joke of a club, City, right, are trying to spend, what is it? I don't know, 200 million upgrading their stadium for what? They can't even fill 60,000, let alone 70,000 people. We're the only club in the UK, and we know this, that can fill a stadium of 100,000 people.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's the thing. And it's always the same joke, isn't it, with City? Like, what are you doing? I think Domino's got involved in it, didn't they, when they started going, it's like making our pizza boxes bigger, but our pizza's the same size and all that. It's the same joke, isn't it, with them? And it's frustrating to see, because it's kind of always... It's always the why you're doing it, whereas United seems to constantly have been holding back on things like that. It's nice that Ineos are doing it. And to be fair, you mentioned the Challenge Cup and England games and rock concerts and Coldplay coming there and all that sort of stuff that always go to City's ground. They are talking about a Wembley of the North, and it is something that they want to include, and they want to include it in the revitalisation of Trafford Park. Now, you mentioned something before about the Munich tunnel. And then alluded to it just then, that it could be the women's stadium, it could be the reserve team stadium, it could still be preserved due to this size of the land that we have.
Yeah.
Do you think that is probably the best way to go? New stadium, preserve Old Trafford in a way that allows Old Trafford in its current state to remain? Because I think that things like the Munich tunnel and the statues around the stadium and the Munich clock and the Fergie statue, all those sort of things, they need to be implemented into the new stadium. They just have to be, because they're important. They're so vital to the club's footprint and the blueprint of what makes Manchester United so great. Yeah. So that has to, and I think that's probably a lot of people's concerns in terms of, what are we leaving this great stadium for? We're so nostalgic about it. I think if there was an architectural plan and people saw that plan and were like, okay, well, there's the Munich tunnel, there's the statues, there's the brickwork in front of the Trinity statue and things like that. If we kept that, I think people will be like, this stadium is great. As beautiful and as incredible as that stadium was in, I think, Los Angeles the other day. It's not a football stadium, is it? It's and I mean a football, not an American football stadium. It's not a football stadium. It's a ginormous, incredibly architectural stadium. It also cost, I think, $4.5 billion. It
was ridiculous, wasn't it?
So we have to, not just money wise. It is going to be. We have got to keep the atmosphere and the sound of the stadium within. We can't just have a huge stadium like that, because it just won't work, I don't think. So we've got to be careful in how it's planned, because and I know Jim Ratcliffe has said he wants sort of answers by the end of the year, and architects will be scrambling for this. I know they will be. So it's going to be big, and it's going to be a huge stadium. It's going to be big for the club, because this is what that stadium now needs to be representative of what Manchester United is going to be in the next 50, 60, 70, 80 years.
100%.
So it needs to be the best stadium in Europe, or definitely the best in Britain anyway.
No, I totally agree. No, I think the best in Europe, 100%. We've got an opportunity, though, to do something no other club has done and turn Old Trafford into what it should be, and that's a shrine. I would chop it off and I'd redo the bowl. I used to call it the bowl, when it was just a single tier, double tier. Yeah, I used to call it the bowl. So we could drop that down to about 30,000, 35,000 people, right? And then it'd be absolutely brilliant. And then we could keep the nostalgia, the beauty and the wonderment of what Old Trafford used to be. And then alongside it, or somewhere in close proximity, you're absolutely right. As you walk up to Old Trafford, the new Old Trafford, whatever you want to call it, this is where the tingles should start shivering. And that's where they need to make the shrine start as well to the new one. I'm not saying line it with statues or anything like that, but line it with nostalgia somehow. So you're walking in down a tunnel or something, and then the new stadium appears. So you've got that history still, whatever it may be. That could be old brickwork, couldn't it, of Old Trafford? A little brickwork, a little tunnel or something along those lines. You walk up to the step and you've got a brick archway made from the Old Trafford, out with the old, welcome to the new. Something like that. Fans would love it. They really would. And then you could go and you could visit. You could still have a mega store at Old Trafford the original one, as well as a super duper mega store in the new one.
In the
You
new
could
one,
do we could be everything that Arsenal couldn't and Tottenham couldn't because of their proximity. They couldn't do it. They just couldn't do
absolutely.
it. White Hart Lane, and we could do that. And we've got a real opportunity. And I hope Jim puts it out to the fans, puts a questionnaire out to the fans. What do you want to see? I'm not talking season ticket holders. I'm talking fans. Log on to Manchester United survey, blah, 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 on the website. What do you want to see? I'd be amazed about what people would want. It'd be brilliant.
I think we'd have to be slightly careful about that, though. This is no disrespect. This is no disrespect to overseas fans, and it's absolutely no. I think they're a massive part of the club as well. But I think we have to be careful with what we do go for, because there is going to be overseas fans that will literally just want Old Trafford to look pretty. And I think there's an element of we need to be careful that we don't negate match going fans. And I don't think we will do. I think Ineos have probably shown at the minute that they've got the right people in, the right experts, and I think they'll do the same architecturally, and I think they'll do the same club historically as well. There's one thing I just wanted to bring back up from Henry Winter's tweet. And he mentions in the middle here, it'll take time and they'll probably have to move out for 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that viable? Because I don't think City will want us to share. I think it'd look ridiculous, United playing in a stadium covered in blue. I don't think United fans would want it. So what do we do? Do we massively reduce Old Trafford and take the revenue losses for 2 to 3 years? One idea I heard from my good mate Gaz Drinkwater said we subsidise season ticket holders, pay for the travel and use Wembley for 2 years.
Yeah.
Or what do we do? Because it was easy for Tottenham because they were already in London. And before you hear the jokes of, well, United are all based in London anyway, it's bollocks, and it's not true. There's more Man United fans in Manchester than there is City fans. So what do we do? I actually thought Gaz's idea sounded ridiculous, and then thought, well, it's probably actually the only viable option.
Yeah, well, it is. But the real viable option would have been when the Commonwealth Games stadium was built for the Commonwealth Games. Before City got their mitts on it, where we wouldn't have had that problem, would we? City had remained at Main Road, and we had the Commonwealth Games Stadium. That's, that would have been great for us. You haven't got that. So there's a couple of things. First of all, with the new stadium, I would love to see on the back of a seat either a player's number and name of everyone that's ever walked out to Old Trafford. That'd be a huge, brilliant testament. I've got my name on my seat. Well, actually, I've got my Uncle Brian's, and I did that because he took me when I was 7 to watch Man United versus Wolves. So I've had that as my own personal shrine to him. But I'd love to see the players from yesteryear remembered in some way. And you could easily do that with 100,000 seats. Anyway, if you go to Wembley, it's going to piss a lot of people off, but you would have to subsidise the season ticket holders, because from me to, I don't know what it's like from Manchester, but from Shropshire to get to Wembley, it's probably by train 100 quid, by car it's an absolute pain. So, can you afford every other week, maybe weeknights as well, to travel down to Wembley? It isn't possible. We haven't got a Twickenham, have we, that I can think of anywhere in the Northwest? I can't think of a Twickenham-sized stadium. The rugby league stadiums, they're smaller, aren't they?
They're tiny.
Tiny.
I'm only over the bridge from Salford Red Stadium, and it's about 12,000. It's tiny.
Yeah, which you can't do. So there's nothing, and this is why this Wembley of the North is coming up, because there's nothing here apart from City Stadium, which was, as I said before, the old Commonwealth Games stadium, wasn't it? So if you don't go to Wembley, you can't redo City, because it's all emblazoned, isn't it? The Etihad or the Etihad or whatever, it's all emblazoned in City colours. The cost of moving that to Manchester Red would be wrong. If you keep Old Trafford as it is, reduce the size, as you quite rightly say, because of the infrastructure and the issues, then that's the best option. To build adjacent to it, where you can and be able to have match days somehow at Old Trafford. How you do that, I've got no idea. Because it's going to be really difficult. But I wouldn't want to go to Wembley. My lad won't care. My boy won't care. He's 23. He don't care. Get on the train at 10 o'clock, Dad. A few beers. I'm sorted. You know what I mean?
I think it's more the cost, isn't it? And I think we'd probably see a lot of day trippers and tourists go, which is probably fine for 1 or 2 years, as long as sort of the root cause comes back to when it gets back to Manchester.
Wembley's
just not an easy answer for it, is there?
No, Wembley'd want it. Because
Wembley'd want it, yeah. Wembley,
they get a cut of the ticket because you're exactly right. There you go. The FA, Wembley, killing. They'll be pushing to be done. Because what's Wembley? Is Wembley what 90,000, 80,000? Yeah, you'd fill it. You'd fill it.
I think I don't know if we'd fill it every week.
Most weeks.
I think because of where it is, we wouldn't fill it every week. We'd be close to filling it every week, but there'd be the occasional game where I think they'd be 5,000-6,000 short, I think.
But, you know, it's the only option I can think of. I can't think of any other option. You can't play in Wales. Well, no, you can't. You can't play at Cardiff.
Cardiff, Millennium. Yeah, it's too far away.
It's too far away. Yeah, you can't do that. So there's no other area apart from. Well, yeah, apart from.
There's nowhere apart from City Ground. I mean, there is another part of the Northwest, but I'd rather spit before I even played there. So
step foot on that, yes.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, moving on from Old Trafford, obviously I knew that'd take up a bulk of the show, but obviously it's big news. Wanted to very quickly and very briefly discuss transfers. Obviously, we're in mad season with transfers, and there's a couple of things. There is not that one. Where is it? We have got Mazraoui. Apparently, the deal with West Ham is off, and Man United are now pushing to sign him. And that sort of ties hand in hand with an outgoing of Aaron Wan-Bissaka. What do you make of that full deal? Are you happy Mazraoui's coming in and Wan-Bissaka's leaving? Would you prefer to keep Wan-Bissaka? What's your thoughts?
There's a few elements to the Mazraoui deal which I think will be overlooked. Am I happy Wan-Bissaka's gone? No. You know, I think he's a brilliant one-on-one defender. I don't think he's great going forward, but as a defender, which I am, he's brilliant. Mazraoui has got a similar goal record to Wan-Bissaka, about 1 in every 2 seasons, something like that. It's very, very poor. But he understands Erik ten Hag. So he's another one that's Ajax, Bayern Munich, potentially Manchester United. I also think if you were to watch some of the Mazraoui-Antony collaborations, it allowed Antony to play his normal free-flowing game. And I think there's a potential that Mazraoui could unlock Antony's potential.
Oh,
he clearly had.
I'm going to keep quiet on that one.
No, it's all right. No, I'm kind of with you on it, but I can. There's the logic with it. Where people are getting massively angry about is, well, why did West Ham do a deal for 18 million or whatever it was, and we're doing 15 plus 5 or 15.5 plus 5? And I think that's an overshoot to getting a bit off De Ligt. So we'd almost Bayern would get their money, their total money, but we wouldn't be paying as much for De Ligt because we've overpaid slightly for Mazraoui. Yeah. So ultimately, it'll be a combined deal. Now, people were saying, well, you did that with Zirkzee. Zirkzee's buyout clause was about 13.5 million euros.
We paid a little bit more because it paid a little more favourable terms that we paid.
So we got favourable terms, yeah. So we're acting like a proper football club. Now, I'm with you on Antony, by the way. I totally agree with you. I think if we could get 20 million for him from Fenerbahce, get him gone, or Trabzonspor, wherever it was, get him gone. Because we all know, and we all seen, his true value at the time was 25 mil. It wasn't any higher and it wasn't any lower. So how the fuck we went in at 90 is beyond everybody. So we know that.
I'm genuinely convinced Ajax absolutely pissed themselves laughing when they saw the email come through from Ed Woodward or whoever it was.
Yeah, well, I think what happened is they did a translation first of all just to make sure it scanned okay in Dutch, and then they got Adrian van der Sar. I think they got Adrian van der Sar's 9-year-old child just to proofread it, because I think that's where it was. I mean, unbelievable. We had our pants ripped down. So I want him moved on because we don't need him. We clearly don't need him. I think I don't know about you, Carl, but I think if we do get De Ligt, Yoro remains fit, and we have Martinez. Obviously, we've got scope to play 3 at the back as well as 4 at the back. So we can go 3-5-2. Mazwari is a very good wing back. We've got issues then at left back, haven't we? Clearly with Luke Shaw and
this is where the right back and the Mazraoui deal and Wan-Bissaka deal concern me a little bit. Yeah. I think I don't. It doesn't concern me because I understand why we're trying to cash in because he's clearly not signing a new deal, and we'd lose him for free next year. But I would like to hope that we're doing something on the left side. I actually think Reguilon would be a great signing for the left back.
I'd take him back. Wouldn't you take him back as his loan?
I'd take him back for a couple of years, 10 million quid, something like that. I think he'd be fine.
Brilliant for us.
He'd be a really good backup.
And Mazwari is very good as a wing back, and Reguilon would be a great wing back, and that would allow. Just say it's Akate, just purely for argument's sake, it's Akate, Mainu, and Bruno. You play top for the first time. You can play Zirkzee, you can play. And that would give us because Yoro, I don't know what you've seen of Yoro. I don't know whether you saw him much at Lille, I think it was, wasn't it? Or Lille. Was it Lille?
Yeah, Lille.
Yeah, Lille. Yeah. He can carry the ball, Rio Ferdinand style. And Akate, I don't know whether you know much about Akate. He could, if Yoro carries the ball, he can kind of step back and sit into the middle 3, ready for turnover and transition. But it also enables us to play 4 at the back, doesn't it? And we've got 3 really top quality centre halves plus Maguire, because it looks like Maguire will stay over Lindelof. And so it's important that we get De Ligt. So if we've got to use Mazwari to get De Ligt, I think it's a better package. And it does make a lot of sense to me, although I would not move Wan-Bissaka out. But you're absolutely right. There's no chance of him signing a new contract, is there? I don't believe there's any discussions at all.
No, I think they've made their mind up on him. And I mean, I think, like you say, I think he's a very good defensive player. Maybe he's just not as good on the ball as we'd like him to be. And I think that's why he's obviously only. If we can cash in for 15 to 20 million pound now and get something, fine. One thing I did want to ask you is obviously Ugarte is looking likely. Who else? Rabiot. We also are. I think it was Stretford Paddock said that we are looking to reach an agreement with Adrian Rabiot. I think he's a really good player. His off the field antics, I think, worry me, and I don't mean what he does. I think his agent is
Veronique.
Yeah, Veronique. I think, again, this is just me sort of speaking out loud, I guess, and thinking out loud. But from what I've heard and what I've seen from the off-field things with her, it doesn't completely fill me with joy. Although I think he's a very good player, and he started for France and keeps very good players out of the France team. So, I think there's clearly workings for midfielders. Ugarte and Rabiot seem to be the 2 that are spoken about. However, one last question on transfers: Jared Brandtwaite or De Ligt?
De Ligt for me. Okay, I know. You're talking about the left back. There's a reason we want Brandtwaite, isn't it? He can play centre back and left back. He's left-footed, isn't he? So I get that. I think
Brandtwaite can play across the line, though. Really,
he can.
Right, and left centre back and left back, and I actually think that's why De Ligt hasn't happened yet. I don't think it's anything to do with Lindelof and Maguire. I actually think
you could be right.
I think it's to do with the fact that I think United think they have a chance of getting Brandtwaite still, and I don't know why. I think they'll try again for 60 million, and that'll be the take it or leave it. And I reckon they'll do it with about 5 days left of the window. I have a funny. The thing is, Romano, I know he's the repeater tweeter and all that, but there's so many stories that haven't broke yet that we don't know about, that even he probably doesn't know about, that Ornstein won't know about. So I think there's still a few twists in the transfer market. So I do get why you'd want De Ligt. I do like Brandtwaite. I think he's very good. I also think De Ligt's very good. It's an exciting summer window so far. I think people that are saying we've had a bad transfer window, I think are jumping the gun a little bit. And there was a particular unnamed clown who I saw today who kind of alluded to that.
Yeah.
Man United and Ineos have been working on personal terms for all their targets and pretty much have personal terms agreed with said targets. However, they all rely on sales, and it's probably slowed down a little bit because a lot of the players who were up for sale are probably still on holiday or only just getting back from holiday and things
they
delay
are.
it. So instead of jumping the gun for engagement and jumping the gun to jump down the backs and be negative, maybe just hold off for now. So we'll see.
I think you're right. I think you could well be right about Branthwaite. You could, and they've done their due diligence on De Ligt, and you quite rightly say they've got the deal in place. I think that deal is in place with De Ligt. I think you're right, and they haven't pulled the trigger for A, B, and C reasons. Now, I think Lindelof perfect for Italian football. Somebody like Bologna, I don't know, maybe Roma, someone like that would be perfect for them, or maybe even Portuguese football. Yeah, or even Turkey, somewhere like that would be perfect. Maguire, he would be ideal for Palace or Everton. You know, take 30 million for Maguire and do something. And then it enables you to look at your squad. Somebody asked me the other day, and I'll be brief. Somebody asked me the other day, what would you do with if somebody come to you and you're the CEO of Manchester United and somebody offered you 120 for Bruno, what would you do? So I'd take it. And he looked at me horrified. Why would you do that? I said, before I say anything, it's got F all to do with his performance as a player. I'm looking at it as a commodity, and I'm looking at where I want to be in 5 years' time and where I could be in 3 years' time if I got that money. Now, you know as well as I do, Cal, that Liverpool took, 145 for Coutinho in his prime.
Yeah.
He was a brilliant player, wasn't he, at the time? And they made the best of that Coutinho money, didn't they? Alisson, Van Dijk. Now, what happened when Tottenham took the money for 80 million from Evan? Typical. What happened to Tottenham money? They took 80 million for Bale, didn't they? They ruined it. They didn't spend it wisely, did they? And if you had that type of money, you could spend it wisely. That would be ideal. So looking at our current squad, would you move out Scott McTominay if you could get 30, 35 mil? Would you move out Maguire? And, if you could get 30 to 35 mil, wages and transfer fees opens up more than 2 players, doesn't it?
Yeah, I do. I get the argument. I just think replacing Bruno and his output and what he does, I think could be
very difficult.
Hard. It'd be so difficult, and I think that means more. That means more to me as a football fan than money. It's not my money, so
yeah,
I get the argument. It's just, I love Bruno. I just love him to death. I can't ever say I'd happily have him playing at 45. I wouldn't care, to be honest.
Well, no, I just
a question. I get the argument. I completely get that, and I have seen the argument quite a few times. I'd find it very hard to replace his output. And I think he doesn't. Even now, I don't think he gets his dues from even United fans, but definitely opposing fans. And I think opposing fans don't give him his dues because he plays for United. And I get that. It's fine, whatever. We don't care. But Bruno would be very hard to replace.
I'll tell you who wouldn't be hard to replace. Some dude called Evan Fahy.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you seen his chicken wings? He was on the other day, bless him. I love Evan to bits, and he got his Chelsea thing on, and I said, "Go on, show us your muscles." Evan. I said I was going to wear a vest top, but I don't want to get outdone by you. Bless him.
Yeah,
love you, Evan. Love you, mate. You're great. You're great.
Just briefly want to speak about there's something I want to move on to and speak about, and I think it needs addressing. And I did briefly mention it to you, Stu, because I feel like speaking about Bruno actually brings us perfectly onto it. But I don't know if you saw this, Stu. Quitter should not be skipper. Souness claims Bruno has the wrong attitude to be Man United captain. So first it was Pogba, now it's Kobe Mainoo, and now it's Bruno Fernandes. There seems to be a thing with Souness, and there's particularly I do wonder if he's done this to Bruno to try and shake off a tag that he got because it was always a black footballer. But it seems to always now just be United players, and I think his Liverpool link is obvious why he does that. I find it bizarre that he's still employed by mainstream media, and I find it in fact, I don't find it bizarre. I think the mainstream media outlets that do employ him know exactly what they're doing and know exactly what he's doing, and it's gaining clicks and interaction because it's Man United. But at what point do we genuinely go enough's enough? Because soon as I said that about Mainu, Pogba, now Bruno, you've got the likes of Jamie O'Hara on Talksport saying that Ten Hag's completely deluded for thinking he's second only to Guardiola, when if you look in trophies output, he actually has exactly been that. No one's won more trophies than Ten Hag since he started. Obviously, apart from Guardiola, is what I mean, second to him. Simon Jordan always doing the same thing. Gabby Agbonlahor saying stupid things all the time. You've got a clown who works for Manchester Evening News who just writes utter wibble and drivel all the time, being completely negative all the time. At what point do United fans, or in fact, not even United fans, because United fans can see right through it. I'll ask the question better. At what point do Man United act and say, do you know what? You are no longer welcome to even report on this club, and you're not welcome in our press conferences anymore.
Yeah, the likes of Simon Jordan, he doesn't always go in at Man United, but the way he goes in at people to be controversial. Graham Souness in particular, Jamie O'Hara, they do all this to be current. If they didn't speak about Manchester United, they wouldn't be heard. This is the problem with what I call lazy journalism. And it really is lazy journalism. And you actually made a great point, actually, a few minutes ago about the repeat tweeter, which is Fabrizio. Now, he tweets constantly the same old stuff until he gets it right. Have you noticed? Well, you have, because you mentioned it. And that's so he stays relevant. And to be fair to him, he gets a lot right, gets some wrong, but he gets more than not right. The way that other channels and YouTube utilize confliction is abysmal, and most people are starting to see through it. But Manchester United in particular should take a leaf out of, and I don't like Tyson Fury, by the way. I don't like what he's become. Certainly don't like what his old man is. But they banned Talk Sport, didn't they, from any of their events?
Yeah, he did.
We need to do something like that. We need to be strong and say, look, I'm sorry. We don't want Graham Souness anywhere near the club. We don't want Simon Jordan here. We don't want X, Y, and Z here. Otherwise, we'll just ban Talk Sport, period. Now, he's done it a couple of times, hasn't he, Ten Hag, with newspapers. There were particular, I can't remember who he banned now, but he has done it.
Samuel Luckhurst, and I think, I actually think it was Jamie Jackson from The Guardian, which I was surprised about because I think he's usually quite good off the top of my head.
Yeah, but you do have to take a stand sometimes. I just don't understand Souness, really. There's no need for it. You can be critical of a footballer, fine, but you can't just keep going after one club's players. It's just pathetic. Now, whether everybody's got their own views on the captaincy at Manchester United, everybody's got their own views on football captains as a whole. You know mine, Cal. Take no notice of my skipper, and I'm no skipper at Tipton Town. No fucker takes any notice of me. They don't. I walk around with a stupid thing, and all I do is go to the coin toss and go back. That's it. Nobody takes a blind bit of fucking notice of me, and so they shouldn't, because you're too busy concentrating on what you're doing on the pitch. As for Bruno, but for him to call out Bruno, who's been our most consistent player of standard over the last 3 seasons, consistently, he's just a fucking idiot. He really is. He was a brilliant footballer. That's what really annoys me. He was a brilliant player. I mean, Jan Molby, Kevin Keegan, that era, they were brilliant players. Just shut your mouth.
Yeah, well,
it's lazy journalism.
Gary Neville and Roy Keane said, I think it was ages ago, I think it was about a year or 2 years ago, they said that, if they could swap their trophy or for anybody's, it'd be Graham's, just because of how good it was. Yeah, his irks me quite a lot. I think Gary Neville could call him out a little bit, I think, and he probably has done a few times when it comes to Glazers. So he's obviously a good one there that he's managed to call him out a little bit. I think he could do it more, but he's done it well when he has done. The likes of Talksport and the annoying thing for me is that Samuel Luckhurst has always been useless, to be honest, and I think he's just scared of the fact that modern day media within within football is probably changing, and he doesn't like that. In fact, I know full well he doesn't like that. Because obviously with fan channels, there is some fan channels out there that are actually quite good. You know, Stretford Paddock's obviously very good.
Brilliant.
I'm biased, I would say that.
They
There's particular ones that I actually don't mind who used to be part of one that I really hated. They seem to be doing quite well for themselves. From what I've seen, I disagreed with something they said on Twitter the other day, but on the whole, they seem to be quite okay. And I don't think Samuel Luckhurst likes that. And it's also annoying as well because the Manchester Evening News used to be a very well-respected media outlet, and it used to be a very well-respected, trustworthy news source. And unfortunately, now the website is just an ad-ridden load of nonsense led by a chief reporter who actually doesn't like Man United and just wants to continuously feed out negative stuff because it gets the Evening News more clicks, and more clicks means better ad revenue, and more ad revenue means more money. So it's the way it is, and it's a shame. But moving on from that, I wanted to discuss something with you, Stu.
Yeah.
And it's the second to last thing we're going to speak about. But he was one of my favouriteest ever. Is it this one? Yes, it is. Ruud van Nistelrooy return. United defenders learning about what he used to hate coming up against as a striker, coaching his 4 boxes, finishing, one-to-one communication. He's a lot more than a forwards coach. There's a little, obviously, within the article, there's Evans and Tom Heaton insight. But it seems like, and I've obviously seen other media outlets report this, but he seems to be being very well respected with throughout the player group. And they seem to be really listening to him. Now, I absolutely adored Van Nistelrooy when he played for us, and was devastated when he left, and understood why he left, but was devastated. Are you happy he's back?
I was delighted. You know me, Cal, I don't get giddy about anything. But when I found out he was coming back, I was absolutely made up. He's my favourite ever striker. He would be a nightmare to play against. You are, sorry?
Paul Scholes is as well, I believe.
Yeah, he's just unbelievable. But what I like about Ruud is what I like about the full current setup, first and foremost, before we talk about Ruud, is the 3 guys that have come in are all managers.
Yeah.
And they're now coaches. Who would leave a managerial position, irrespective of where you are, to coach and to become an assistant manager at Manchester United, unless you A, believed in what they were doing, and B, saw the potential of what we're doing? It's very rare. I've never seen that. I've never really seen that happen. You know, we're talking about getting Michael Appleton back in to look at our under-18s. The old Bolton coach, manager, if you remember. He was actually an ex-player. I think he was.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. I don't know whether he was in Marsh's year or, but I don't know how old he is now. But you know, he's certainly an ex-player, and so to bringing all these coaches in of quality that have had managerial experience is what you need. But if you're Xerxes, Højlund in particular, and in fact his goal against Arsenal was almost Van Nistelrooy-esque from outside the box. The way that he outpaced the player, used his body to maneuver him off and then slide it between his legs, was absolutely brilliant. Where I'm really looking forward to seeing the improvement is the 6-yard box and the 12-yard area. See, one of the things Ruud was brilliant at was not only his positional play, was he used his eyes to great effect. So what I mean by that is he would be able to tell the instant that Beckham was about to deliver a cross, and then he'd be able to maneuver into position ready for that. One of the most difficult things is, and you play the game, Cal, is when the ball's coming in, is being able to judge the distance from the ball either landing on your head or landing on your feet. And Ruud was an absolute master at that. If he can show Xerxes, Rashford, Højlund, Garnacho, Ahmad, if he can show these guys the how to judge the distance from the 12-yard line to the penalty spot to the goal line, how to do it in quick single movements like he used to do, we're going to score a shitload of goals. Now, let me put that into context. Our good old friend Rasmus Højlund scored 16 goals in all competitions from the most woefully equipped forward in terms of delivery you've ever had at Manchester United. Rude will be drilling Garnacho. He'll be drilling Sancho if he stays. Rashford if he plays out wide. Ahmad, to get that ball in at the right time. I mean, you often speak about crossing in from the diagonal, don't we? Don't always go to the byline, cross from deep. Reguilón was brilliant at doing that. That's where you'll see the difference in my mind with particularly Højlund. I'm not sure about Zirkzee because I don't think we know enough about him yet. I don't.
I would definitely say more Højlund, and agree with you actually, because Højlund actually scored 16 goals, I think, from like an XG of about 7.2, and I think that it's shown how bad the creativity and transcreation, other than Bruno, was in the team last year.
Yeah.
I think the movement of Højlund will improve, and now it's down to the midfielders and the wingers to create more, which is one of the reasons why I actually think the likes of Anthony will hopefully be shipped, because he just doesn't create enough. Garnacho probably didn't create quite enough, but you could see throughout the end of the season he was starting to pick that up. And I think Van Nistelrooy coming in will actually help with the wingers, because Van Nistelrooy, when he was at United, he was when Ronaldo was there. And Ronaldo was doing so many tricks, I think it was starting to annoy Rude a little bit. And I think he's kind of dragged it out of the game a little bit from Cristiano, which is obviously good. Obviously, Ronaldo went on to do amazing things, but I think it helps Ronaldo sort of mature himself a little bit. But I'm chuffed, and I'm excited for this season, and I'm excited to see what's going to happen. However, I wanted to end on something that was a little bit more light-hearted, because obviously, Stu, you've mentioned that you are now back playing football very regularly. And we've discussed many times on group chats and private chats and even on videos before about football boots. Now, I am looking at some lovely football boots at the moment, and I don't really think they're quite Stu's taste, I will be honest. They're definitely very expensive as well, but I am hoping to get them in the coming weeks and months, unless Adidas want to make an even nicer colour set. But I want to get these. What are your thoughts, Jim?
Yeah, well, I love the F50s. So my lad, who's 23, holds something against me, and that is, back in the day, he was desperate for an orange pair of F50s, and I couldn't get him in his size, so I got him blue, and he's never forgiven me. He had all the colours F50s you could possibly get, but he wouldn't give me. But what I want to talk about is I've prepared something, Cal, right, which I wouldn't normally do, okay? But I've prepared something for you here. I'm going to go through my football boots that I run throughout the season, okay? And because I'm quite interested in your studs and I'm sorry, but I use 5 pairs throughout the course of the season.
Wow. Oh, have you got the firm ground, soft ground? Have you got the artificial ground? You've got all of them.
Yeah. So depending on what game I'm playing and where I'm playing. So Benny will cry here because I have a pair of white Copas.
Oh, is that Benny Tattoo Benny?
Benny Tattoo. Now these are slightly narrow studs, so I use these purely for 4G. And the reason I use them for 4G is because they're pretty good without getting dug in. So a lot of 4G at the minute is real grass and artificial grass. So if you're using those particular ones for 4G, Cal, they won't work. Now, I also have a pair of multi-ground boots. Now the stud pattern's very similar, but these are thicker. So you can use these on firm ground, soft ground, and 4G. I have my go-to.
The firm ground ones do usually work on 4G though, because they are for harder ground.
Yeah,
I know they're not specialised for it, but
they're not specialised. So what you'll tend to find is you'll get your toe will bend up because you'll have that issue. Obviously, the greatest football boots ever, ever.
Them ones.
Yeah, the Copa Mundial. So I have 2 pairs of these. And I have 2 pairs of these are Kaiser, and I've got World Cups. I haven't got my World Cups around my car, so these are my backup studs. But football is going crazy. I bought a brand new pair of Predators, and nice. These are purely for indoors. So these are yet to be debuted. So you're going to get debuted tomorrow night.
I was going to say they look a bit too clean.
Yeah, these are purely for indoor. So if you don't want AstroTurf trainers, you can use these. So what I would say to you, Carl, is if you are using them for grass or multi-ground, I would go for that type of stud pattern. They do the F50s in that type of stud pattern. If you go for these, they don't do them, but these are okay, but they're only great for really firm ground grass. They're okay on AstroTurf, and they're not brilliant. So something like that is what you need. So sorry, but this is this is what I tend to use throughout the year, as well as
we need to get that on a TikTok to explain to people what boots to use. We have the runners shoes, don't we? We need to get that on a TikTok.
Yeah, you'd be amazed. People don't realise, because they go in now. So certainly kids, certainly parents, right? They'll take their 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 8-year-old, and they'll get them the wrong boots all the time. And you've got to understand what you're playing on. So, are you playing on grass or AstroTurf?
At the minute, it's just 4G, just up at 5s down there. But it's. So
I'm going to tell you something now. Then, get onto the next website. These are 90 quid normally. I picked these up for 35 quid.
Oh wow!
Yeah, get onto the next website and they'll be perfect for 4G for you, mate. Honestly, I promise you now.
I don't even want to tell you how much those ones are that I've just put up.
I know how much those are. They're either at the 120 or 140, I would imagine.
No, oh god, no, they're not that.
Oh, are they 200 odd?
They're the £250 ones, yeah. And can I just as a disclaimer, I've never actually spent that amount on a pair of football boots. In fact, I've never even spent half that on a pair of football boots in my life. So I'd like to think as a grown adult now, one day I will treat myself. However, the missus needs to approve it, I'll be honest, because that is
she will
amount of money on boots. Yeah. But we are going to finish there, Stu. Thanks very much for that. And thanks
no worries. No worries.
I know you've been doing quite a lot of work across various podcasts. I know you've been busy with your work as well. Where can people find you?
So you can use me and abuse me at Stu Woolley on Twitter, but you can actually see me on MEFC Realist TV and AFU. Still make an appearance on AFU sometimes.
Oh, AFU! I know they're going quite strongly.
Yeah.
Shout out to AFU and in particular the women's channel. I know they're doing really well. Connor over there as well.
Yeah,
yeah.
So and of course, alongside Mark on the Weekly Armchair for hosting post-match games or reviews.
Yeah, well, make sure you catch those. Make sure you catch him with Jarvis as well on MUFC Realist TV as well. That's always really good. Myself, you can obviously, you know exactly where to find me on Twitter. It literally says it there. Many of you do and love to actually call me things, which is always lovely to see.
Yes.
But yeah, catch me on Twitter at _Callum Stone. You know where I am. Obviously, the website is there as well. It's not been written on for a long time just because I've been doing this and working. And until you fuckers want to pay me for this, work has to come first, unfortunately. So, but yeah, that is me. Obviously, the United Road is it's back now. I haven't got clues on next week. I'm going to ask around. I think I have a couple of ideas for what to get on. It's whether they're free. Obviously, they're doing a lot of stuff with the tour at the moment and writing and all that sort of stuff. So it is a busy time, obviously, with the season starting. But there are some really good guests lined up, and I'm not quite sure the order, but there will be some really entertaining guests coming up. And the season has started. But pre-season has started. The season officially starts in 2.5 weeks, I believe it is.
Yeah.
2.5 weeks against Fulham on a Friday night. So if you're going, enjoy. I won't be because I'm actually moving house. I'm buying a house and I'm potentially moving that day. So that will be a stressful day.
Buy your boots before you move, pal. That's all I'll say. Because you'll have no money after that.
I will. Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm like, I don't know what to do. But yeah, obviously, thanks for everyone in the comments tonight. And
brilliant.
Evan getting involved as usual. Obviously, Talk of the League is, I think, tomorrow or Thursday.
I think Talk of the League's tomorrow. And then Nathan's got a show, hasn't he? On Friday.
I believe Nate Dells has got a show coming up as well. So Talk of the League tomorrow. Nate Dells has got a new show coming up, which I'm sure you'll hear more about very soon.
Yeah.
And every Tuesday, I'll be back here. You know where to find me. Thanks for all the comments. Thanks for watching again. And I will see you all very, very soon. Stu, thanks again
Pleasure.
for coming on.
Enjoyed it, mate.